Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Jacob Winograd. You're here live in the LCI Green Room. I'm sorry we're getting a little bit of a late start tonight. That is my fault, but I'm happy to just kind of skip the long-winded introductions and try to get this debate started promptly. And I'm excited to have both of these guys on. They have both been on my show separately, individually, and now they're here for a debate. To my right is, of course, Michael Leibowitz. He is the host of the Rational Egoist, as well as the Capitalist Corner. And don't you have like a third show now or something, Michael? You're like
I
collecting
do.
them.
I got everyday ethics every day at 2:30. On the weekend, I do self-made soul. And I got to tell you something. Every time I'm around you, I'm arguing with somebody. I think it may be something about you that's causing this.
Everyone likes to blame the Jews, so we're on both sides of every
You ain't
issue.
kidding.
To my left, of course, is someone who's also been on the show a couple times, a troll in the comments, libertarian jurist, debate me, bro. I think I got most of your official title, the one and only Casimir. How are you doing, my friend?
Hello there. I'm doing great. I'm just at the top of the world. Thank you.
Yes. Casimir, you're one of those people that like online, you're very combative and you can make us very angry. And then you show up to these conversations and you're just very pleasant. And it actually makes me very angry sometimes how nice of a person and good of a person you are, despite your very your like spirit animal when it comes to debate though is like a like a grizzly bear or like a polar bear or something. I don't know, but I very much enjoy our spars, even though they can get heated at times. Debate is good, and that's what we're here to do tonight. The resolution that we're debating is, of course, related to the recent events that have popped off in Venezuela over the past weekend. Arguing in the affirmative will be Casimir. The resolution reads, Trump's actions towards Venezuela are in the interest of the citizens of the United States. And Michael will be arguing in the negative. We're going to have opening statements, 7 minutes from Casimir, 7 minutes from Michael. We will then go into open dialogue where I'm going to try to be as minimally involved as possible, only stepping in if someone starts to hog the time too much or if they start having too much crosstalk. But I'm hoping that we'll have a productive back and forth. We will take audience questions at the end, and we will, of course, prioritize super chats. We're starting late, so we'll get through as many as we can. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. By the way, when either of you or when you guys are giving your opening statements, I'm going to put you in the solo view, so you'll take up the whole screen. So don't be alarmed by that. Casimir, the floor is yours. I will start the timer whenever you start speaking.
Excellent. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So, the proposition of today's debate is Trump's actions towards Venezuela are indeed in the interests of the citizens of the United States, probably even more broadly for all Americans, except the communist ones. And, before I go into my actual argument, there's this guy in the comments that's really annoying that said, if I can't justify a state doing any action, because all states' actions are apparently unjustifiable, then I've lost the debate from the start as an ANCAP. You, yes, you in particular, when your tax return arrives, sometimes in May or June, I want you to tear it up to stay consistent. Thank you. Now, let's go to the definitions. So, first of all, I don't think we'll need many ANCAP definitions, but let's go through them real quick. Conflict, something contradictory, a contradictory action towards a scarce means. Aggression is the initiation of conflict. And my third definition is that political communism, meaning communism in action, is naked aggression. So all communists that are voting, participating in elections, they're all aggressors. They're all conspiring to aggress. And they're all conspiring to do very evil things towards you and everybody around them and everybody across the entire planet. So don't be one of those. the best good communist is a former communist. Okay, we're keeping it YouTube safe. Now, what is good in this debate? It is whatever contributes to liberty, to human flourishing, and of course, from our mutual perspectives, it's whatever defends the ownership of the private individual. So, what exactly happened in Venezuela? What's the context here? The context is that in 1976, on January 1st, in fact, the Venezuelan state, a bunch of commies, decided to nationalize their oil industry, which by some estimates amounts to 20% of the entire planet's known reserves. Maybe this is a bit inflated, maybe it's 10%. But what's important is that by that time, the ownership of that resource was by primarily US citizens. These were US citizens who paid the Venezuelan explorers to locate the initial fields. It is the US citizens that went to Venezuela with equipment to explore and find more oil. It is the US citizens who negotiated with the thugs, with the commie thugs in the government to achieve concessions, which is basically just protection. And these were US citizens who built refineries all over the coast of Texas and other sounder states in the United States along the coast of the Gulf of America. So all of these were US citizens that in 1976 were aggressed against by a foreign power. And unfortunately, the US government sat there and did nothing about it. Maybe it was because of the USSR. I have no idea why. So whatever action Trump is taking in Venezuela is clearly to the benefit of some Americans. And as individualists, that's enough for us. It's enough. Now, I would say that developing 10% of the Earth's oil energy reserves and gas energy reserves is definitely in the interests of all Americans. When the market expands, prices go down, everything becomes more easy. We all agree on this. So I think just on the mere facts, my opponent already lost the debate. So what kind of arguments could he have? Let's go through them. He could say, it's done using stolen money, using tax money. He's not an ANCAP, he won't do it. But if he did try to say that, well, let's see, how much money did these oil companies pay in US taxes since 1976? I think enough. And most of the people in the military who participate in these events are volunteers who get paid. So as close to a PMC as we can get within our current regime. Okay. Now, what are the possible counter arguments? Harm to innocence. Again, this has to be proven beyond reasonable doubt on an individual level. And every time you point at a communist that got harmed, tough luck. What could it be? Legality. Well, legality, I believe there's only one law. There's some idea here that it creates a bad precedent. It doesn't. The invasion of Panama might have created a bad precedent. Any of the actions of the communists across Europe might have created a bad precedent, but really none of this matters. International law is sort of a spook. What matters is, do your citizens have weapons? Are Americans armed? As long as Americans are armed, they're the real check on the power of our government. If we didn't want something to happen, we would be fighting at arms against it. And if it happens and we don't fight against it at arms, it means we don't care that much. Okay, let's go. What else? Okay. Now, what are the good points? Let's reinforce them. Protecting private ownership. Terrifying communists. Always good. Removing BRICS, which is the China, Russia, and to a lower extent, India alliance from the Western Hemisphere. Really, really good. Deterrence. I don't even need for this campaign to be effective. If we could just hit communists from time to time, it's good. It's a good thing. And then entertainment. The amount of crying on the internet that this has caused, the amount of unmasking by fake libertarians, It's just brilliant. I love it. I love every moment of it. And I don't believe that this will lead to any slippery slope, because the situation is completely different, as we will find out during the debate. I hope you will all have fun. Thank you.
All right, with 15 seconds to spare, thank you, Casimir. By the way, I will read a couple quick funny chats. Apparently, someone thinks that you are streaming from the Shire, which I thought was pretty funny. Back to your background. And then there was a $2 super chat from Huge Hat Harold saying, Leibowitz shaved diabolical. Yes, we were talking about that before.
Immediate concession.
Started. Yeah, immediate concession. All right, Michael, I will start the clock whenever you are ready.
Go ahead.
All right.
So importantly, the main benefit, remember what we're talking about. Do Trump's actions towards Venezuela benefit the American people? The only real benefit that was touted is to the oil companies based on money that was taken from them 50 years ago. Now, Trump just said that he's going to subsidize the oil companies. That's going to be done with American taxpayer money. The government is going to be deciding which oil companies get to dig, how the money is distributed, how anybody thinks that Trump is equipped to do that and that that's going to benefit the American people. Whatever. I'm not an ANCAP, but I know enough to know the government's not competent to do that. So I want to place a strong emphasis on context, because context is vital. Nicolas Maduro is an evil man. If he dropped dead of a heart attack, I couldn't care less. If somebody, one of his own people, walked up to him, put a bullet between his eyes, let's celebrate. If he had been snatched up by police walking down the street and arrested, fine with it. But none of that is the context. None of it. So what is the context? So let's start with the reasons that Trump has given for his war with Venezuela. And let's call it a war, because that's what it is. I don't care what language they use. It's a war. He claimed that Maduro was emptying his mental hospitals and prisons in sending the people here. He claimed that Maduro is directing the gang Tren de Aragua, sending them here to terrorize American citizens. And he claimed that Venezuela is sending fentanyl to the United States, and hundreds of thousands of people have died as a result. Now, experts say these things aren't true. The indictment that just came out, despite being updated, didn't claim any of those. A memo from Trump's own intelligence said that Maduro wasn't directing Tren de Aragua. Still, Trump claimed it. No, Trump's claimed motivation fundamentally is a doubling down on the failed, immoral, rights violating war on drugs. The same war on drugs that's responsible for millions of deaths and incarcerations of American citizens. How can doubling down on the failed, immoral war on drugs be in the interest of the American people? It can't. In pursuance of his goals to stem crime and stem drugs, Trump has justified mass deportations without due process by claiming the threat, again, of Tren de Aragua. He's militarized our streets, violated the civil liberties of our people, and caught innocent people in his dragnet. How can that be in the interest of Americans? In fighting the war on drugs, Trump has bombed boats. He's alleged without evidence that they're carrying fentanyl. This is contrary to the U.S. Constitution and maritime law, which the U.S. is a party to. So how can it be in the interest of the American people to have its government act beyond the confines of the laws that it agrees to? Finally, we didn't just walk in with an invitation and get Maduro. The United States bombed Venezuela, killed combatants, likely civilians, sent in the troops, then captured Maduro. Bombing boats, bombing a country, sending troops into a country, and arresting its leader, although he's illegitimate, are acts of war. According to the United States Constitution, only Congress can declare war. Congress didn't do so. This attack is blatantly unconstitutional. How can it be in the interest of the American people to have its government act outside the bounds of the supreme law of the land, the American Constitution? Any proposed benefits that are going to come to this, and we heard, well, BRICS is going to be put in line, and China is not, maybe they won't be getting rare minerals, and the oil prices are going to go down. These are all highly speculative and completely dependent on the United States government being competent, which I seriously doubt. We also have a lot of reason to be skeptical in our prognostications, right? First of all, consider our recent track record of deposing foreign leaders. We had the leader, the Taliban in Afghanistan, then we had Saddam Hussein, then Gaddafi. None of those turned out well. Venezuela has a collectivist culture. They had one failed experiment with democracy that lasted about 22 years. The socialist vice president under Maduro is now the president sworn in. Again, socialist, so not even regime change. Trump disparaged the idea of Machado taking over, the person, the liberal, very capitalist person whose party actually won the last election. Trump disparaged the idea of her taking over. He's shown no interest in installing a liberal democracy there. He has said the United States is going to run the country. Does anybody out there watching the show think it's a good idea for the United States to run Venezuela? He has not ruled out boots on the ground. He said it doesn't scare him. He's also been emboldened, which is not in our interest, suggesting Colombia, Mexico, Greenland might be next. None of that is to Americans' interest. Trump has said, as I said before, that we might actually be subsidizing these oil companies. Definitely not in America's interest. Now, will American citizens be happy about these things? How will they respond to being lied into yet another war? How will other countries think of us? What is their policy going to be toward us? If the U.S. maintains a military presence in Venezuela, is it not likely that there will be guerrilla groups? There's cartels there. Guerrilla groups will rise up, some coming from other countries like Colombia, and attack American soldiers. Do we want American soldiers to get killed, hurt, maimed? Is that in our interest? And what about the reasons given for this? Are these actions, now remember, crime and drugs, are these actions likely to make us safer from crimes and drugs? History and logic surely say no. There's a demand for drugs. People will seek to supply it. Do I got another 30 seconds?
Yeah? You're already at 7 minutes, but if you want to take like 20 seconds to finish up, go ahead.
You could give my 20 to Casimir. I'm fine with it.
Okay.
If supply is curbed, this will drive up the price, making it more lucrative. The people that will then get involved in the business, because the risk is up, will be the most ruthless. Crime is likely to go up. Also, with the iron law of prohibition, when drugs are outlawed, when they're harder to get, it leads to stronger doses, more condensed so they can smuggle it in, more deadly. In short, these policies are immoral, unconstitutional, and far more likely to cause harm than good. Sorry I went over, gentlemen.
Not a problem. All right. We are going to, first of all, both of you, well done. I greatly enjoy hosting these debates to hear just, well articulated arguments, even if you disagree with each other. I think this is shaping up to be an edifying discussion for my audience, all of our audiences who tune in. Everyone who's watching, please make sure if you just tuned in, like this video and share it around so more people can watch it and find it later. Again, I'll just remind people that we will be taking audience questions at the end of the debate. But right now, after the opening statements, now that they have commenced, we are now going to enter the open dialogue portion of the debate. So it's not going to be super structured. I'm going to let them kind of go back and forth. If anyone starts to dominate too much, I'll step in and just try to keep things moving along. So whichever one of you wants to start, ask each other a question, ask for clarification on something, or hone in on someone's points. Go ahead.
I say Casimir, given that I had a chance to respond to him already, he should be able to go.
I'll give a quick review of what I found the most amusing, and then maybe I'll ask a question. And the whole section of Trump's words, there's lots of like what Trump said. I listed some of them, and then I wrote my rebuttal, and it reads as follows. Point number 1, don't care. Point number 2, don't care. Point number 3, don't care. Point number 4, don't care. Don't care about what he says. That's not the proposition of the debate. The proposition is his actions. Okay, his words are actions. Well, actually, all of his words, including the lies, the intimidation, the threats, not discounting any future action, all of those things, as the words, are objectively good. Now, if he goes and puts American boots on the ground into guerrilla warfare without any foresight, that's obviously bad. That would be a bad action. But the words for that, no, they're not bad. They're in fact good. It's good to make threats and to say that, you're ready for everything. Now, I think that the focus on Trump in the opening, I didn't want to use this argument, but there's a little bit of an obsession about Trump and not his actual actions. There's an obsession with character. I don't think my opening was really refuted. Oil companies are American citizens. They did, in fact, unlike some people say in chat, own the property, own the fields. It's not the government that gives them concessions, that gives them permission to explore and mine, that owns it. It's the person who goes out in the sweltering heat and gets paid and collects the money and invests the capital. He's the owner of the stuff that comes out. Not the person in some hut in Venezuela who spawned out of his mom, who grabs a Kalashnikov and says, it's mine, it's ours. That person doesn't own anything. They don't even own themselves, okay? So the person who owns the oil is the person that invests in it. The capital owns the oil. I wonder, by the way, I don't want to go through all the points to avoid gish galloping. Do you disagree with this, Michael? Do you disagree that American citizens own the oil?
In 1976, American citizens invested in the oil. I don't know the exact nature of the contracts. I'll stipulate it. Sure, they owned it. I don't care. I think it's disgusting that it was nationalized. I think communism's disgusting. I think Maduro deserves death. None of that means that what's happening now is in the interest of the American people. The American people do not owe those oil companies money, which Trump has said he's going to give them in the form of subsidies. So I don't know what relevance it really has. I will stipulate for the record, it was bad that they confiscated the oil, bad that they nationalized it, bad that their corrupt democracy fell apart, bad that they elected Hugo Chavez, bad that they rigged the elections, all bad. None of that justifies the president of the United States of America lying to his citizens to get them into yet another war. None of that justifies the president of the United States lying to his citizens in order to deport people. None of it justifies lying to the citizens of the United States to start a war in violations of the United States Constitution. So yeah, it's all bad, granted, but none of that means that these actions are in the benefit of the American people. None of it. Not one thing you said.
Okay, is it okay to lie to the American people to make them do the right thing? For example, is it okay to lie to them to make them abolish some form of taxation?
It is not okay for the president of the United States to lie to the American people in furtherance of the war on drugs. That's what happened. Hold on. Your hypothetical is not relevant. Because we're going to deal with what actually occurred. If I say that
the actual actions are good, and then the lies that
then defend the war on drugs
are bad, but if the actions are good, then the lie is irrelevant.
Okay, Casimir, defend the war on drugs. Show me how it's right. Go.
I'm not defending the war on drugs.
But that's what this is.
I didn't use drugs in my justification.
Hold on. It's not a straw man.
The drugs matter.
They don't?
I
Well,
think
that's the
the oil matters.
justification. Hold on.
Sorry,
Hold on.
10
The
to
drugs are the
20%
justification.
I don't. No.
Yes.
The verbal justification, the words said by Trump don't matter. What matters are the actions.
What about the indictment? Does that matter?
That does not matter at all, because it doesn't matter. It
Hold on.
matters insofar as if Trump loses the court cases, if his lawyers are so incompetent and they somehow get him acquitted, even though they control the courts, then that might be a negative down the line. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the naked violence of striking at communists, of blowing up.
You've obliterated context. Obliterated it, dude.
It's your context. It's not mine. No, I don't have to make your argument. I don't have to prove that the war on drugs is good. I have to prove that Americans benefit to a great extent from Trump's actions. Now, Trump's actions don't have to be successful. They have to have a goal. And I know the real goal, and you know the real goal.
Hold on.
The Americans watching know the real goal. If they are smart Americans, let me finish. If they're smart Americans, they know that the goal is oil. And unlike communists, unlike the Maoists in chat, unlike the little pesky statists, we know that the oil, as you have admitted, belongs to American oil companies. Now, your only counter, the only saving grace that you have, is if you demonstrate to me that the oil companies do not deserve the welfare of having the government perform actions to get those oil concessions back to them. Okay. However, since 1976, and even before that, because that's not when they started investing, they have been paying more than you, combined more than most people in this chat, in taxes to the US government. And I don't know how about your theory, but my theory is very simple. If I pay $10,000 in taxes, I can take back $10,000 in any form I want, whether it's welfare or a tax rebate or any form. Or I can, in fact, I hope when the government collapses, I'll take it in museums and works of art and other things that the state socialized and will have to be privatized. So you have to prove that the cost of this conflict is going to exceed the benefit. And you don't even try to do that. That's not even part of the arguments.
Of course it is. That's a lie. That's a lie. What you just said is it's either a lie or just a misunderstanding. The cost is the doubling down on the war on drugs. Regardless of whether you say it is or not, these are the actions given to justify it. These were the actions Trump used in court to try to justify using the Alien and Sedition Acts. This is what he's told the American people. This is what's on the indictment. Yeah, the oil's part of it, of course. But your claim, well, because somebody robbed the oil companies of tax dollars, now justifies them having the government rob other people to give it to them? Well, I didn't rob the oil companies, so why do I got to get robbed to finance their wealth in Venezuela? But again, the context, my man, the context is Trump's claims of why he's doing this. He's the president of the United States of America. He's launched an undeclared war against Venezuela. Nobody believes that.
Only you believe that for the advantage, for the perceived advantages.
What do you mean I'm the only one that believes it?
About the drugs.
Hold on. Hold on. Okay,
nobody we care about.
So we are to take.
And this is no, you don't.
We're going to take your word.
You said that I lied. What was my lie?
Your lie is saying that I haven't even tried to show the costs when I'm clearly showing the costs. Yes, that's the lie. It's either a lie. It's either a lie or you just don't understand. Either way, don't care. The point is, I made the case.
You don't understand. You don't understand.
I understand clearly. I understand.
How does military cost works? How does maintaining an aircraft carrier work?
It's funded by tax dollars. But again, you're obliterating context.
Don't run away.
There's no running. Dude, you couldn't make me run if you had a machine gun. Let's be real.
You can't answer my question.
Okay. Well, all right. Let's try to. There's been a lot of crosstalk, which I didn't want to interrupt right away, but let's try to reel it back in a little bit here. I feel like both of you think that each one of the other is misconstruing something or not dealing with something. So I want to give you both an opportunity to pin that down. Cass, what do you think is not being answered by Michael here?
So first of all, he is making an objective claim, and he brought zero objective evidence. So I'll have to do it for him. I'll have to do his homework for him. When you budget an aircraft carrier, that's when you've stolen the money. You've stolen it already when you budgeted it, and then it's gonna sit at port. It's gonna sail across the ocean. It's gonna sit at a base. It's gonna go to Venezuela or to any other country. It doesn't matter. You already paid for it. So what matters is how is it going to be used? Is it going to be used in a pointless training exercise, or is it going to be used for recovering U.S. citizen property? Not even recovering it completely, just making the first step in an effort to do so. Is that going to be something that you can do? So from an ANCAP perspective, that's a good use of those resources. And just so you know, what he has to do, his burden, is to demonstrate that there's an excess in cost here, that there's an excess in use, that those missiles that were used would not be expiring, that those planes that were used would not be otherwise flying. That's his real burden. And that's what most people on the internet don't understand. They're like, anti-war, anti-war, anti-defense. And here is another important point. If you lived inside anarcho-capitalism, in any covenant community, you would be paying for private defense. The only argument we have against the state, and the main one, is that they're ineffective at using all of that military power that they're amassing. They're ineffective at deposing communists worldwide. They should be doing more of it more effectively. It should be done by private military corporations, not by these government monopolists that Michael Leibovitz supports because he's an objectivist and not an anarchist. It's actually his system finally.
All right. Well, let's try to keep. I don't want this to get too off. I don't want to get this too off focus and we start doing objectivism versus anarchism, because that's been done at least just a dozen times in the last. That's been done a dozen times in the last 2 months on different platforms. But listen, just a follow up to that, just because I'm curious. You said that the only objection we have to the state military is that they're ineffective. It's not also that it's funded involuntarily, because that just struck me as a little weird as a fellow ANCAP.
On any day of the week, we should be saying, press the button to demolish the entire state, including the military-industrial complex, and transferring all of their funding to the private sector. And then we as individuals would say, oh, I want to fund wars. I really want to fund wars against all the communists on all the planet, across the planet. And the most opportunistic and cost-effective strikes should be the highest on my individual priority list. Just like you have a subscription for Jacob Winograd's beautiful YouTube channels, I should have a subscription to a PMC blowing up communists, okay? And unfortunately, I'm deprived of that right because my money is just stolen from me. So, Michael, are you able to demonstrate how this particular military action is against your core ideals, is against what you believe is good for Americans? Because you don't believe that the military should be entirely defunded, right?
I thought if you want to have that debate, we can. I mean, but that's not what we're here to debate.
No, I'm saying from your perspective,
I don't want to answer unnecessary, ridiculous questions. If I had, I'm going to tell you, if I had my druthers.
All right, hold on. Okay, let's let Mike go.
Okay, if I had my druthers, there would be no compulsory taxation. But that's not relevant to the proposition that we put forth tonight. The proposition relates to whether Trump's actions toward Venezuela benefit the American people. Now, you just put out this thing about the oil tanker, about the U.S. military and Navy ships, and you put it in financial terms. But benefit is not only financial. Benefit is not only financial. I shouldn't have to tell an ANCAP about psychic profit. I shouldn't have to tell disciples of Rothbard about this. I shouldn't have to tell Austrians about a subjective value. Really, I have to do that? But the bottom line is we're talking about overall benefit. So what about the lives? What about the lives that are going to be cost? Now you say, oh, but this is not about the war on drugs. I'm sorry, but when you're going after supposed gang members, when you're deporting people, when you're militarizing the streets of the United States, when you're justifying your actions based on the war on drugs, I'm not just going to push that aside because Casimir says so. So as I've said, the cost is all of these things, including the money spent on the military. And by the way, Sending the military over there. And again, who's going to defend these oil fields? It's going to be American soldiers, boots on the ground. Trump basically admitted it himself. So when they get killed, when American soldiers get off in this other country, you can explain to their families how you got to understand that the money went to the battleship was being wasted. That's what you can explain. When more people end up in jail because of the war on drugs, you can explain to them how you don't want the money wasted and how you want the people recompensed because their wealth was stolen 50 years ago. And then, by the way, when descendants of slaves come forward and say, we want to be recompensed for what happened to our ancestors in slavery, you can support that too. For me, I support individual rights. I support the United States Constitution. This is clearly in violation of all of those. That's all. I'm not missing anything. You're referring to monetary. I'm referring to total.
There are many slaves that can demonstrate a particular person that enslaved them and a particular piece of property on which their family member worked. And for those people, restitution and retribution is due. If there is no living villain that actually committed the enslavement, and if the children denounce all of these actions, then the real thing is the property. I do believe that those property disputes should be resolved by, as Hans Hoppe recommended, demonstrating evidence. If you have a piece of paper, which many slaves do, of where many slave ancestors, people with ancestors slaves.
We get what you mean.
Yeah, I get you. Okay. Well, at least you're consistent. At least you're consistent. Wrong, but consistent.
We don't have some nebulous evidence. We have an actual admission by the criminal, by the act of nationalization. They have admitted the crime. So what they owe the American companies is not just. Actually, they also did an act of armed robbery. So everybody that committed an act of that armed robbery, everybody that supported it and keeps supporting it, they owe a pound of flesh to all of these companies, to U.S. citizens. And if our government, which you support a government.
No, I don't.
That's
not true.
Defending ownership, then you actually are supposed to be in favor of the government enacting the retribution and restitution, because as an objectivist, you claim that the government, it's its only role, which is magical. As soon as it starts doing something specific about it, you say, oh no, that's unconstitutional. Oh no, that's against international law. No,
it is.
Cares.
If I may exercise a little moderator's.
So if the Constitution prevents it, if the Constitution prevents retribution and restitution, you as an objectivist should say that's evil.
First of all, it's not just a matter of you're going to get somebody's property back. That would always be a good thing. Who wouldn't be for somebody that lost their property getting it back? But you're going to have, like the guy here, Jeb Common says, controlling the world's largest oil supply and lithium supply will absolutely benefit the American people. Sure, because the United States government has demonstrated such competence in controlling these types of things. We've showed such competence in going and administering other countries. No, they have not. They've shown themselves to be abysmal failures at this. And by the way, this is all completely hypothetical that this stuff's going to happen. And it's all contingent on the competence of the United States government, which I thought ANCAP said they're not competent. And by the way, you're saying you're putting down the Constitution, yet you're supporting the president who was elected under the Constitution, the president who took an oath to uphold the Constitution, the military who, no, not a straw man. You need to learn your fallacies, Junior. Here's the thing, right? The Constitution is what the military has agreed. The military has agreed to uphold the Constitution as well. So you put down the Constitution, but you support all the people that have done it.
Steelman my position, you will fail because you've been.
It's not Jacob's job to make me steel man you.
Correct.
Dude, here's the thing, Casimir.
All you do is lie.
Casimir, what you don't understand is during this debate, I'm going to be honest with you and blunt. I've utterly destroyed you. You just don't get it. Like
All
you
right,
don't get it when you run your mouth online. I'm sorry. You don't get it.
Let's pause for a moment. I like you both. This is my channel, so I'm
It
okay
is
with
your
the
channel.
I'm okay with the crosstalk. I'm even okay with things getting a little bit snarky. I will insist that we try to be as charitable as we can. And from my perspective, I don't think anyone here is trying to lie or be dishonest. This is how debates go. You know, arguments get misunderstood, or you just have a disagreement on how to interpret particular data or philosophical disagreements that we're trying to work out. I want to ask a question to Michael, which I think will help suss out some of what Casimir is arguing for, which is that like, forget the Constitution for just a moment, because I'm not an objectivist.
Jacob,
I'm an ANCAP like Casimir. Yes, Casimir.
If I may, with limited time, may I ask the questions until we decide to close it?
Well, I think this will be helpful, but if you don't want me to ask it, then you can proceed.
No. So, Mr. Leibovitz, I think that the fact that he came unprepared and he didn't demonstrate that this is a net economic increase, meaning there is an extra cost by this action, that this is like, he is supposed to say, what he's telling you right now is, he tells you, I'm an objectivist. I support the existence of the US military, but I don't want it to be used. He's telling you, I'd rather this aircraft carrier be out in the sea on training exercises, shooting at paper targets, than shooting down communists. And he's pretending to be an ANCAP to say something else. And you see, economically, he didn't demonstrate anything. He didn't demonstrate this is an extra expense that would not have existed. He didn't say to you, I want to abolish the US military. He is in favor of the monopoly of the US military. And when I say the broken clock, the US military monopoly is a broken clock. It's incredibly inefficient. Finally, it kills a communist. Finally, it takes a communist prisoner. And suddenly, all the objectivists are against it. Oh, no. Well,
I think we're going in circles here, though, because you're again bringing it back to economic cost.
And I have a question next. I have to reinforce my point because he's dodging them. I have a simple question to Michael. Did you say that Venezuelans did not aggress against Americans?
Did I say no Venezuelans have aggressed against any Americans? No. I never said that.
Do you want me to quote your recent Twitter post?
Sure. Go ahead.
Or let's
quote it up.
Yeah, let's quote it up very quickly. Where is that beautiful reply? I probably won't see it. You did say that.
I thought I came unprepared.
You said that this was an aggression against Venezuelans because Venezuelans did not do anything against Americans. I mean, am I wrong?
I have never said that no Venezuelan committed an act of aggression against America. I've never said that ever in my life. I don't know what you're talking about, so I can't really defend it. You have to show me, but you're not showing me.
Okay,
what about the question before? Jacob wanted to ask a question. You stepped in.
How about I ask Michael my question quick while you try to find the post for
Can I address what he said first, Jacob?
Sure, go ahead.
Real quick. I'll do it quickly. You brought up again the economic cost benefit analysis. The debate proposition is not about solely economic cost benefit analysis. It's about whether Trump's actions toward Venezuela are benefiting the American people. There's other benefits and there's other costs that are not economic. Okay, go ahead.
So you concede the economics entirely.
No, I'm not conceding it. We don't know yet because we don't know what the economic.
You've conceded it. Saying there are other arguments against it and for it, it means a
concession. Do you understand what logic is? I mean, seriously, I'm not trying to even be rude here, but to say there's other arguments doesn't mean that I'm conceding that one.
You say B is also true. That's not a negation of A. You have to prove that A is false.
Okay.
Yes, I understand.
What I've said from the get-go, and you can go back to my opening statement, is that everything that's going to come from here on out is based on speculation. So we don't yet know what the economic costs and benefits are going to be, but I'm skeptical given that the government's history of managing these kind of things.
Just answer so far.
We don't know, but I said that already. Casimir, I said that.
One moment.
Hold on. You ask a question and then won't let me answer.
No, you're not answering. Is a single act of shooting a single missile from an F-35 at a SAM site that is owned by communists. or destroying a communist military base, is that action a net benefit to Americans? That particular singular action, economically, is it a net benefit to Americans?
Okay, first of all, no, because there might be a better reason to use the weapon. So I can't say unequivocally that it's.
Do you have any evidence for that?
No, because it's a hypothetical that doesn't exist.
Well, I mean, they shot actual SAM sites with actual American missiles.
And they went in there with actual American military.
Yes, and how is that?
Because we don't. Oh my Lord!
One moment. You said we don't know with the overall whether it will be beneficial in the future
because we don't know what's going to happen.
Analysis. Is your position falsifiable at all? You're just saying, we don't know what we don't know.
Yes, Casimir, we don't know what we don't know, which is why engaging in this.
Here's a simple question. I'll simplify it for you.
Dude, you ask a question, I try to answer it, you interrupt me.
If a missile hits a communist SAM site or it hits a training target out at sea, which is more beneficial to Americans?
It will depend on the ramifications of what occurs, dude.
He can't answer.
You don't know that. That is an answer. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the blowback is going to be. So I can't answer it.
A fallacy.
It's not Cartesian doubt. You can stop throwing around your little Zulu words. It doesn't make any sense, dude. This stuff works good in your Discord channel. It doesn't work in reality.
This is a consequentialist.
I'm not a consequentialist.
You have to calculate the consequences. And when I asked him, is it good to destroy assets of an aggressor against America?
I'm not. Okay. The country. Okay. I am not a consequentialist. That's number one. But the question is this going to be a benefit to the American people? You're giving me a scenario where we can't know. One of the reasons I oppose this is because we can't know. And I said so in my opening statement. But by the way, Casimir, you can't know either. Whether you want to claim you can, whether you
I'm not acting on your system.
But you don't know. Jacob, can you ask your question, please?
Yes, please rescue him from this absolute
dude, Casimir, I'll tell you what, Casimir, let's put a bet on this. You and me put a bet on this. When this is done, that we have no objective listeners. We'll submit the transcript to Grok and we'll see who misrepresented who more often. Well, okay, so all you care about is what's in your own head. Because there's no objective criteria that's going to show that you've been wrecked tonight.
Well, let's
go ahead, Jacob. Ask your question. I answered his question. Now I'll answer your
null and void. You basically say that because we don't know.
Are you going to let Jacob ask a question, or are you going to keep talking?
Yes, Jacob can ask a question on his own show. He can
come
in here and enforce his private property, his ownership of this channel.
All right,
awesome.
However, it's
then let him do it.
Watch me absolutely demolish you as you evade.
Dude, the only thing you demolished was your haircut.
All right. Let's take a beat. Despite the fact that it's gotten heated, I think that you're both. This is more productive than it might seem to either of you at the moment.
Honestly, let me just say something. Honestly, I don't like getting involved in insults. Seriously, I really, really don't. I really like to have just a good discourse back and forth. Seriously. But for like a year now, I've been dealing with this dude online with his shots, and he's going to throw the gauntlet and calling names and this and that. And he comes on here, he does the same thing. So I'm just having a little fun. But the truth be told, I don't want to gauge in insults. That's really not my jam.
Well,
I want to hear your question, Jacob. Go ahead.
I have several questions now towards both of you, but my original question, which I think is still germane to what we're talking about, because I think part of what Casimir's push towards you is that, like, is there a role for the government to come in and act on behalf of Americans who have been defrauded by communists?
Okay.
And maybe you would say Trump's action in this instance wasn't the right act, but does that mean that there is not a way for the government to intervene to uphold the I guess, like, the private property rights of their citizens who have been sort of infringed upon, at least in history, by the Venezuelan government?
So if you're asking me, do I think that the United States of America should play police and go around the globe and rescue American citizens who have invested in other countries? No, I don't. No, I don't. But that's a separate question from whether these actions are going to benefit the American people on whole. So no, I don't think so. Do I think there's a role for the American military? Certainly. If Americans at home, maybe even abroad, get attacked, that's the role for the American military, right? The role for the American military, but it's also clearly defined in the Constitution, right? So we have that aspect of it. But to simply answer to your question, the role for the American people is to protect the rights of Americans here at home. And if we're attacked from outside, then to go fight it. But again, that's irrelevant to the proposition, Jacob. The proposition are Trump's actions towards Venezuela beneficial to the American people? Not some American people, not a sliver of the American people, but the American people. That's the proposition. So my view on what the military should be doing in a hypothetical world is entirely irrelevant.
Well, I don't even mean just the military, to be clear, because I mean there could be ways that the American government could try to adjudicate fraud. Like, I mean, the American government, I imagine, or a legitimate government, you would say, should adjudicate a case of fraud of someone's private property rights here domestically. And so if it happens by a communist government overseas, now you might say, well, they took a risk by investing in something overseas, and if they got defrauded, that was their own risk. And so I'm not saying we have to go down that entire rabbit hole, but I thought it was at least somewhat relevant to at least get somewhat of your.
It is what you're getting into a area of law that I really don't know, quite frankly. So I'm not certain on it, and I'm very comfortable saying when I don't know, I don't know. There's probably instances that you could give where I would say yes, but by and large, as a general principle, I think that if people want to go overseas to other countries that are hostile or they're not democratic and they want to invest their time and money and put themselves at risk, it's not the job of other Americans to bail them out. That's my basic view. That's my basic view, but you might be able to come up with a scenario where I say, oh, I hadn't thought of that. That's different. But again, it's not relevant to the proposition.
Yeah, I don't think you thought about this scenario, and it is relevant to the proposition. Because in your worldview, this is a worldview you do hold, I know you run away from it, you believe that there should be a monopoly on the use of force, and the monopoly should be owned by the government. And yet, simultaneously with that belief, you believe that monopoly should do absolutely nothing to protect the assets of American citizens globally. Now, I believe that if you have any understanding of economics, you would know that it is preposterous to say that American ownership and development of 10 to 20% of the world's reserve of heavy oil, which is America is expert at refining, does not benefit Americans. Besides the obvious benefit of lower fuel costs, it connects with everything surrounds you. Oil is in the camera that you watch myself through, in the computer, in all the cables that you have. Oil is everywhere. Oil is the spice, and the spice must flow. These bloody communists reduced the abysmal production that they had in the 70s down to, I believe, a quarter of what it was, if not less. And their excuse is, oh, sanctions, smanctions. The reality is that they're absolutely incompetent, even more incompetent than our governments, even more incompetent than our corporations.
I'm fine with that.
And would greatly benefit from private ownership, from individual ownership of those oil reserves, even, dear God, even from corporate ownership of those oil reserves. Nobody is more incompetent than the communists.
Sure. If private ownership of oil reserves was protected, they would do, all things remaining equal, a better job than government. Agreed. But what's happening here and what Trump has said is, well, you can roll your eyes. Let me
rolling my eyes
talk.
because you're dodging the question.
I'm not.
Let Michael hold on.
How does the government protect this private ownership? You said it's a monopoly.
No, I'm talking about what's actually.
Hold on.
I have an oil company. I get taxed 50% of my money. What do I do? How do I get my property back if you monopolize my right to hire companies to do it for me?
Yeah, all right. Listen, dude. Listen, if he's not going to let me talk, then I don't need to be here.
So Casimir, you just asked the question twice. I'm going to insist that you let Michael answer. If you don't think he answers your question, wait till he's done talking, and then you can say, I still don't think you answered my question. Okay.
My answer to the question is simple. Yes. all things remaining equal, a private company owns oil fields and owns oil distribution. It's better than a government. But what's actually going to occur, what our government has said is going to occur, and what we have zero evidence against occurring, is that Trump is going to decide who gets to go in there. Trump has said the Venezuelan people are going to benefit from the oil. Trump has said he's going to subsidize the oil companies. I read today that it's going to cost $80 to $90 billion to get these oil fields up and running. We also don't know what's going to happen if guerrilla fighters are going to be coming in. Are they going to be interfering with it? If American soldiers are going to die? There is a lot of uncertainty involved in this kind of thing. So to ask a simple question in a complex world and say, well, is it beneficial economically if private companies own oil reserves? Of course. The problem is we're not dealing with that simple scenario. The bottom line is we're dealing with a broader scenario. We're dealing with a broader topic of whether the actions of Trump toward Venezuela are beneficial to the American people. Now, Casimir wants to make this entirely about the oil, but he's entirely ignored.
2 minutes.
Okay, dude, I'm going to listen. Dude, can you just shut up?
But you're filibustering for over 2 minutes.
I'm not. I'm answering your question.
Hold on.
Dude.
We
you
agreed
can't
at
have
the
a
beginning
debate.
that I was going to give 3 minutes is the point where if someone has gone on at the 3-minute mark, I'll ask them to wrap up. But let's just let them finish.
The bottom line is that this is largely about the war on drugs. The war on drugs is an abysmal failure. Trump is lying about the war on drugs, and Americans are going to pay for it. Now, a commentator said that I'm trying to predict the future to tell whether actions are good or bad. No, I'm not trying to use the future to predict whether the actions are good or bad. I'm trying to say that we can't predict the future in this specific thing, and therefore we can't know if that's going to benefit the American people. That's what I'm saying. Go ahead,
Which
Jacob,
is not
over
an
to
answer
you.
to my question.
Okay,
I'll give you a simple. I'll give you a simple question. I am an American citizen.
Yeah,
and I invest in. There's a place on Earth where I can homestead oil. I come in there and I homestead oil, and in fact, not just homestead oil, but I'm very magnanimous. And when thugs show up to me and say, "Hey, there's such a thing as concession. We believe in socialism." And you should give us some of that money that you are extracting with the sweat of your brow from the earth. Not just the money that you pay all the workers, not just the money that you pay for all the capital that you're investing, not just the money for all the economic benefit that you're providing. On top of that, you should also bribe our government. And we say, okay, cost of doing business, we'll bribe your government. And then 20 years later, once we started developing everything, you just say, oh, I'm in favor of the USSR. I don't like you anymore. You're not longer my friend. So we're going to take it from you. Your position, and this is the question, focus, really focus. Your position is that I have no bloody recourse. It's illegal for me to maintain my own military. It's illegal. As an oil executive, illegal for me to do so. It's illegal to hire mercenaries. It's illegal for me to go and engage in private war and privateering against another country. You have deprived me of that right. And now you tell me it's not your responsibility to do so. I am paying to the benefit of many Americans. I am paying trillions of dollars in taxes since 1976. The collective eye of all the evil oil corporations. All the evil oil corporations that produce all of the things you benefit from, that saved your mother in the hospital by providing her with all the plastic that's there, by saving your father, by extending your lifespan. All of these evil people, all of these evil capitalists that you're so much against, you're telling them they have no recourse. And you're telling us that we don't benefit from their efforts. That doing the modicum of action for the first time in 30 years, doing something physical against the thieving communists, you're immediately against it without benefiting, without analyzing that benefit at all. So now tell me, what should I do?
Okay, first of all, the American companies didn't homestead the land in Venezuela, so that's false. What they did was paid the Venezuelan government for the right to explore for oil. That's what they did. They got in bed with the Venezuelan government. Anybody, listen, you're watching, Google it, go look it up. I can't do everybody's research for them, but they got in bed with the Venezuelan government. That's the first thing. Secondly, again, The proposition of this debate is whether Trump's actions toward Venezuela benefit America. Trump's actions toward Venezuela include much more than just oil. Again, you can't know if we're going to benefit from the oil, and whether or not it's just or unjust is not relevant to the proposition, because that's not the proposition. But again, even your hypothetical fails because it wasn't homesteaded. They paid the Venezuelan government for the rights to the oil. The whole point is, look, I'm gonna narrow this down as quickly as I can. Do Trump's actions toward Venezuela benefit Americans? Trump's actions toward Venezuela are made with the explicit intent of stopping the flow of drugs and crime into the country. That is the war on drugs, and he lied about it. That's it.
Didn't answer.
I'm okay with that. I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm okay with it. I'm okay
question.
with it.
What should I?
I'm okay with it.
He doesn't have a definition of homesteading. Let me teach you what homesteading is.
You can teach me whatever you want.
If the government says you need a license for your home, and I build a home, it's not the government's fault. Home when it revokes my license. If I say I want to purchase land, and the government says you have to buy a license from us or a concession, and I purchase that territory afterwards, and then they revoke my license, they're still stealing from me. I am the homesteader. In fact, the fact that I was the first to give money to the thugs to identify in the land registry that this is my oil concession, that is an act of homesteading. I have created the border, and then I made that border stronger by building the perimeter, by hiring armed guards, by maintaining and excluding from my territory. So this socialist is telling you that the socialist government is the one that owns the oil fields because they said so. And me, the oil company who implemented by sweat and by brow, by all the investors that worked tirelessly with their 401ks, investing in the global development of oil, that we are the thieves. This is a Marxist and a socialist argument by Mr. Leibovitz.
Okay. I would love to hear when we're done with this how I'm making an argument that's based on the labor theory of value, the exploitation of labor and excess and surplus wages.
All right,
but
go ahead and make your statement, Lee.
But here's the thing. Tell me something. Here's the thing. Again, I understand that homesteading and ANCAPism are the flavor. I get it, but that's not what the debate's about. The debate is about whether the actions of Donald Trump toward Venezuela benefit Americans. Now, to specifically mention your argument right now, I will talk about it. The bottom line is, so they paid the Venezuelan government. Where did the Venezuelan government get that land from?
They didn't. They don't own it.
Well, the whole country, they took it from somebody. They've made a claim about something.
No, you have to demonstrate reasonable doubt. If you claim that somebody stole something, you have to demonstrate it beyond reasonable doubt. Yes, you do. The presumption is of innocence, not of guilt, Mr. Leibovitz.
Okay. Here's my presumption. Let me make this clear for you. I will even grant this to you because I don't care. The American oil companies homesteaded the land in Venezuela. Granted. Okay. Now explain to me how doubling down on the war on drugs and lying to the American people, how deporting people under this guise, how catching American citizens in your dragnet and violating their civil rights, how killing and executing people on the seas, and how going in, bombing Venezuela, snatching up Maduro, and then putting in place another socialist benefits the American people. That's what you have to say. That's what you have to answer, not some hypothetical about homesteading 50 years ago. What you have to do is show that the war on drugs is worth it.
I want you to be able to refocus the debate. I want you to please showcase the image that I'm presenting.
I don't need to. Your image is irrelevant to the proposition. The proposition is simple. Do Trump's actions toward Venezuela benefit America? That's the proposition. And you keep wanting to get bogged down in homesteading, all kinds of stuff. It's, do they benefit the American people?
Which you just 5 minutes ago claimed that they didn't have a homestead and then conceded on.
I conceded because it's not worth arguing. It's irrelevant.
You basically lost the debate at this point. But I want to show you a moment where you actually misrepresented the truth.
Okay.
Go ahead, please. So maybe you guys don't see it, but the very final sentence, I'm going to read it for you. Does it matter that Trump is a demonstrable liar? No, it doesn't. Does it matter that he has repeatedly lied to justify bombing alleged drug boats? Maybe when the action is about Trump. And now, to justify a military assault on a foreign country that hasn't attacked the U.S., it matters to me. A foreign country that hasn't attacked the U.S.
That's right.
A foreign country that hasn't attacked the U.S. So
I think you should repeat it 5 more times because you're really making yourself go here.
10 armed robbery and stealing 10 to 20% of the world's oil reserves is not an attack. That's what he's telling you. And then production. That's not an attack. That's what he's telling you. And by the way, he got cornered because he now conceded that it is homesteading.
I didn't.
He does believe in the military monopoly. And so me, as an American citizen who wants as much oil produced as possible, so that I have as cheap of a product as possible, so that I have as much of my life, as much of my flourishing and liberty as possible, he believes that the military should just park out at sea and shoot at targets instead of shooting at communists. That's what he believes. He won't tell you that. He will break it down into different components, but the logical structure is there. He got captured and he lost the debate.
Okay, I didn't get captured. The problem is what I said earlier today. What you asked me if I've ever made the claim that no Venezuelans have ever attacked Americans, and I never made that claim. The country of Venezuela, meaning the government of Venezuela and the military of Venezuela or their assets, have not attacked the United States of America, the geographic region known as the United States of America. That's what I was talking about, because that's what's relevant to the Constitution of the United States of America, Casimir. Again, you're not addressing the debate. Okay, you listen, I just let you bogart and talk and yap and talk, but you're not addressing the fundamental proposition. Is this in the interest of the American people? You're saying it's irrelevant if the American president lies. It's irrelevant if his reasons given aren't real. That's all irrelevant. I'm sorry, but most people, the American people that you're saying are going to benefit, think it matters when their leaders lie to them. They think it matters when their leaders violate the law, when their leaders violate the Constitution. You keep saying, oh, this is not the war on drugs, except for that's Trump's justification. I'm sorry. I have to go by what the official justification is, not what Casimir has invented in his head about homesteading from 50 years ago.
Wait, you just conceded that the homesteading was real. Are you now reneging on that?
What I said was I'll concede the point because it's irrelevant. And no, I'm not reneging because I don't care. It's irrelevant to whether Trump's actions now.
It's irrelevant. I'll build it.
Hold on. Okay. Okay. So Casimir has ordered me not to say it. I'll say it again. It's irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, Michael's allowed to say it's irrelevant if he thinks it's irrelevant.
I'll demonstrate it's relevant. Is it in our interest that the oil gets explored to the maximum and exploited to the maximum in the market? Of
course, okay.
Yes, no. It's not a monologue.
Dude, you are not going to tell me how I can and can't answer a question.
You just
your tough guy shtick. Hold on.
I want to build the logical structure.
Dude, your tough guy shtick doesn't work here. I'm sorry.
Okay,
it
then
really
you can
doesn't.
just be quiet.
Your beard, your suspenders, and your Amish haircut.
Now it's my turn to talk. I tried to interrogate you, but you
asked me a question. Dude, I'm not here for you to interrogate
you with
me.
Yes or no questions. It will build a chain of logic. It will demonstrate that you're not truthful.
Hold on.
You're preventing me from doing so. So now it's my turn to monologue for 3 minutes.
Who the fuck are you to think that you're going to dictate how I answer a question?
He was done speaking.
All right, so I have you both muted because this is my show. So I'm using my private property rights. Listen, this is I'm fine with open dialogue, but this is not a blood sports channel. So, Cass, if you want to ask Michael, hey, can I give you a series of just yes or no questions? You can ask him that, but you can't force him to go along with that. So that's something you guys can try to work out. There's utility to that kind of like Socratic method of like, can I ask you a series of questions to try to demonstrate a point? But you can't, like, you got to work that out in the conversation. You can't just like, accuse Michael of being bad faith because you you know, in your head wanted to go down that road, but it wasn't like agreed upon by both people. So I'm gonna unmute you both after. So like we're at 1:10. I'm gonna let this go for another like 10-15 minutes, and then we do have some super chats and some audience questions that we're going to get through then, as well as probably I have a few, you know, moderators prerogative questions I want to ask in the mix of that as well. So just kind of you know, laying stake for where we're at right now. You guys can jump back into it.
Whose turn is it?
I understand that he doesn't have a sense for when he's been interrogated after speaking for 3 minutes. So now I'm going to take my time and my 3 minutes, please, because I do have to go through and explain and demonstrate.
You talked last.
How?
What are you talking about?
How it's not irrelevant.
You just talked.
No, that's not true.
It is true. Watch the clip, dude.
You spoke, and then you finished speaking, and I asked you a question, and then you started.
And then I tried to answer, and you said, "I'm not going to let you answer."
No, that doesn't mean you get another 3 minutes and I get to not speak.
Okay.
If you just want to answer yes or no questions,
here's my question. Can we argue? Because I'll just go back and forth. All right.
And we have a
listen, Poindexter. You don't bully me. You don't control me. Nobody cares about how tough I think you are. I don't care.
I want my 3 minutes.
Shut up. Don't care.
All right. So I had to mute you both again. I'm going to honor Michael tried to ask me a question, so I want to hear what his question is to me as the moderator, see what he says, and I'll roll if his request is reasonable, and then decide who's speaking next. So, Michael, what's your question?
My question
I didn't get to speak after he did.
Okay, but in any debate, you're allowed to cast in any debate, in any debate, any debater can appeal to the moderator. His request. He asked me, the moderator, a question.
No. He monologued, and I get to respond. He said the flow of the debate is he said that homesteading is irrelevant. I need to demonstrate in the next 10 minutes or part of it that homesteading is relevant, and he's evading. So can I do that, or are you going to debate him instead of me?
No, what I'm going to do, I'm going to repeat myself for a third time now, Cass, is that he was asking me, the moderator, a question.
It doesn't matter what he asks you. We haven't said closing statements yet. What matters is, did he get time to speak? Did he claim that one of my points is irrelevant? And now, do I get to either interrogate to prove that it's relevant, or I get to monologue for 3 minutes to prove that it's relevant? Or you get to silence me and sabotage the debate. You have a choice right now.
Cass?
Dude, you don't run shit, dude. I'll say it because he won't. You're not a gangster, Casimir. You're not tough. You don't run shit.
Guys, I'm going to keep muting you guys if you're going to keep talking over me. Listen, this is my channel. I'm not trying to rob. This is taking longer than just letting Michael ask his question. And any open forum debate, even in blood sports, you're allowed to appeal to the moderator and ask the moderator a question about what's going on.
So
I don't know what his question is. There's a good cast. There's a good chance Michael's going to ask me.
Jacob. Is home
Cass, there's a good point. There's a good chance that Michael's question is going to be something that I can answer in 5 seconds, and then I will give the floor back to you.
You're not debating, though, Jacob. You have to stop doing this.
I'm not debating.
Closing statements. You're not debating. I'm debating.
I'm
Jacob.
I'm not debating.
Are you hosting future debates, Jacob?
Casimir, people are allowed to appeal to the moderator and ask the moderator a question.
In the middle of a debate. Not part of the format. Stop.
This is my show. This is my format. So I'm saying that
you can change the format live. You've changed it. So now I want 6 minutes in response to his double of 3.
No, he's allowed to. Michael, ask your question. Oh, you're muted. Hold on. All right. What's your question, Michael?
My question was, whose turn is it to talk?
Okay. I'm saying it's Casimir's turn to talk. I'm glad we wasted 3 minutes on that. Okay. Casimir, go ahead and talk.
Excellent. So the result is I was right and you both were wrong. Thank you. And he knew that, and that's why he was laughing here, because he's trolling you, Jacob. Now, it's very simple. He doesn't know. He doesn't have any emotional connection to people. He doesn't understand how interrogations work, that if he spoke for 3 minutes and didn't let anyone to interrupt him, that means I actually asked him a question for a point. His whole position here is to evade the entire debate. That's what he's doing. He's saying that homesteading is irrelevant. He's saying, oh, for the sake of argument, I'll grant you homesteading. He doesn't know what homesteading means. He just claimed a few minutes ago that the government deciding things by socialist decree is homesteading. And then he slid from that position, okay? But homesteading is actually crucial to this, because if Americans invest money worldwide, then somebody has to protect their ownership of that money, their ownership of all that benefit. So let's walk through this. He conceded that 20% of the world's oil reserves are important and contribute to the flourishing of the entire world, but particularly Americans who will get to explore it, extract it, and then sell it on the world market, and thus not be dominated by China or Saudi Arabia or all the other dictatorships from which we have to buy oil now, right? So it is clearly to the benefit of all Americans across the entire American continent, and specifically US citizens, to have that oil explored. Second, he conceded that that oil is owned by Americans, specifically by individual Americans, by Hank Reardons, by people of industry, and that this is to the benefit of Americans. He's not actually a socialist. He's like playing a game here. So he conceded to that second point. So homesteading, that he called irrelevant in his prior monologue, is actually very relevant, because it demonstrates that this is actually a function of the US government. He believes that the US government should exist, that the state should exist specifically, that it should be involuntary, and that it should tax you, and that it should have a military. And then he says that military should just play games. It should just bomb targets in the ocean. It should just do training exercises, because that's what it does if the money is not spent wisely. And as soon as the money is spent a tiny modicum more wisely than normal, as soon as the money is spent on attacking a communist, this person shows up and says, oh no, this wasn't constitutional. I'm sorry, if the Constitution prevents the government from protecting our ownership, from protecting our resources, from protecting the resources of individual investors, of individual contributors, if that's anti-constitutional, then to hell with the Constitution. The Constitution was imposed by violence, starting from Rhode Island and onwards, and it imposed absolutely horrific violence on Americans. And when we get a little bit of a tax break, a little bit of a tax return, this guy says, no, we don't want a tax return. We want money to be wasted on, home care centers in Minnesota. That's what he's telling you. He's saying the government, which is shocking for an objectivist, absolutely shocking for an objectivist, to say that the government should not use its money to actually attack communists. What is a better use of government money than attacking communists? He's not saying that. And he tried to claim to all of his subscribers, he slid off this point, that Venezuelans never attacked Americans, specifically the Venezuelan government that got bombed. And he said, oh, it's territorial. Who cares about territoriality? What matters is private ownership. How am I going to protect my ownership in Venezuela if not by the US government, that he makes a monopoly in that? Meaning he says, you cannot do it yourself, and I'm not going to do it for you. That's an absolute loss for him. And all he has to say in response is, oh, he lied about the drug war, which we both oppose. To hell with the drug war. It's a horrible justification, but it's a justification that works best. It's justification that works best if everything else is bullshit. If people believe in absolute nonsense terms like socialist ownership of resources underground, that just because you spawned in Venezuela and have done nothing to extract the oil, you somehow own this. This is his position. This is what he supported throughout the debate. And he's trying to keep Weasel away from this and misdirect from this. And he's absolutely caught in this. This is the shocking part. He is an objectivist trying to make an ANCAP argument, but he doesn't truly believe in this. What he believes is the government should stay incompetent. This is what he's showing you, demonstrating. And so he lost the debate. Because I demonstrated that, actually, 20% of the oil reserves of the planet, if properly explored, have a much greater impact on your life than all the evils of the war on drugs combined. And he didn't demonstrate anything else. No economic arguments, no moral arguments whatsoever, appeals to the Constitution, false conceptions of aggression, false conceptions of what's important for an objectivist. If the Constitution violates objectivist principles, he should denounce the Constitution, but he doesn't. It's absolute clown show from Mr. Leibovitz here.
All right, Michael, go ahead and respond to any that you want to respond to. You're muted, Mike. I gotcha.
Okay, in the chat, Jim Valiant says, Michael, could oil be the real motive, though? Of course. He says, and might this benefit America down the road? It's possible. But that's not what the evidence says. So now, Casimir says, I'm for the government taxing to others. Actually, no, I'm 100% opposed to taxation. So that's false. He says, I want to build daycare centers. That's false. He said, I've made zero arguments. That's false. I focus specifically on what the justification is. Do I think that homesteading is relevant to life? Yes. The reason I don't think it's relevant here in this case, because I don't think that the United States military should be going to another country to help install a new socialist leader under the possibility that the original owners are going to get the oil back, which we don't know they're going to. They're also going to be subsidizing these oil companies per the Donald. At least he said there's a very good chance of that, right? That's what I'm opposed to. It's not a simple matter of somebody had their property taken and now somebody else is going to go get it back for them. There's going to have to be American troops that go and secure these things, whose lives are going to be at risk. And it's all under the assumption, of course, if they develop the oil, it would benefit Americans. Of course, if it was in private hands and it's on the market, it's going to benefit Americans. My very point is, I don't trust the United States government to do that. Partly, I don't trust them because they've lied all the way around in order to get us into this thing. And they're also demonstrated themselves to be incompetent. That's my point. And by the way, I do criticize the Constitution from an objectivist perspective. I happen to think, however, if somebody's going to put their hand on it or somebody's going to take an oath to support it, that they ought to. I happen to think that if we're going to go into court with it, that we ought to uphold it. I think that if we have elected leaders, they ought to be tethered by something and not merely their whims. And I do think that killing people on boats in the ocean is a pretty big fucking deal. So, and I think that, by the way, putting the military in American cities, which I don't know how that has anything to do with oil, although Tren de Aragua is the excuse. I don't know. And as far as lying about Venezuela, what I meant by Venezuela hasn't attacked us is that the American government, I mean, the Venezuelan government has not attacked the United States of America. I'm not talking about people that are over there in their country. It's a different story. But that's all I have to say, Jacob. And quite frankly, Jacob, honestly, I apologize. I do. I apologize for allowing myself to get upset and for name calling and that type of thing. Jacob, I apologize to you, because it's your show.
All right. Thank you for that.
I have a quick question before the end. Just a quick question. I want to find out if Michael can answer in under 20 seconds. There's a limit. If he can't, I'll answer for him. If not the American military, who should go and die to defend the ownership of American citizens abroad? 20 seconds, please.
Say that again.
If not the American military, then who should go and die to defend American interests abroad? Who should do that? If not the American military.
What do you mean by American interest? I don't know. I don't know what you mean. So I don't know. Are you talking about American citizens owning businesses in other countries?
Yeah. So if
whoever wants
to defend its ownership, like
whoever wants to.
What do you mean?
Whoever wants to. If somebody wants to volunteer to go help somebody in another country that's had their stuff taken, then go ahead. Or the host government, like the person in the
volunteers.
Huh?
Our military is composed of
the military is composed of volunteers who take an oath to uphold the United States Constitution, which designates why they can be sent into battle.
And they were fine with killing a communist. They were fine with those orders. They didn't say the orders were unconstitutional. And if they did, they could have left that mission. But if you ask,
they can't just leave the mission.
If you listen, your answer was an evasion.
Oh goddamn. Okay, it was an invasion. You're right.
You believe.
Okay, dude. Dude.
You believe that.
Stop telling me what I believe.
Is it okay? It's a question. Then another 20 seconds of my time goes to you. Is it true that you believe that the military should be a monopoly?
I believe that the United States or any government should have a monopoly on retaliatory force within a given geographic area. If that's what you're asking me, the answer is yes.
Which includes, so okay, again, I'm sorry.
I just gave you the answer, buddy. I don't know what you want from me. In a given geographic area.
And the Constitution prevents individual citizens from defending their ownership overseas. And this ownership, by the way, is of 20% of the world's oil supply, which is to the benefit of humanity, in particular American citizens, to explore and exploit. So, question for you. Who actually goes to defend? And you say anyone, but by one hand you say anyone, by another hand you say it should be a monopoly. So your answer is no one. No,
that's
one
not true. Okay. So start. Okay. What I said was there needs to be a monopoly on retaliatory force within a given geographic area. If somebody wants to go to another area and defend somebody whose property's been stolen by an illegitimate government, they should be free to do so by their own country.
Great.
So, and nobody ever said, hold on, wait, hold on. How come I don't get to interrupt you? You get to interrupt me.
You get to interrupt as much as you want.
But I don't want to. If somebody, I never once said, implied, stated that somebody in another country shouldn't be able to defend their property. That is again something
the natural, logical conclusion of the.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Not even close. To say that some people shouldn't be forced to go to another country to defend them.
I wish that the government, that the U.S. government, the current state, the people that enslaved Rhode Island, the people of 1913, the people of the stealing of the gold reserves from Americans, I wish that those people don't exist. However, on the one occasion when they do something to our benefit, on the one occasion when the broken clock says the right time, I'm going to applaud that and say huzzah, because it is great. And it is great irrelevant, regardless of all the other crimes they're committing, because they will commit those same crimes. They will do all of those same things. However, most of the presidents that we have are socialist sympathizers, like Obama and like Biden. And what they're going to do with a government like Venezuela is they're going to make it faster, and they're going to make it allied with BRICS, and they're going to allow Wagner mercenaries to go in there and to start assassinating leaders across South America, just like they did when they absolutely conquered Africa in the last 5 years. And what people like Michael Libetz is going to tell you, hey, just fund it yourselves. We're taking 50% of your income. If you're an oil company, probably a lot more than 50%. And we're not even going to defend what you own, even though it's the benefit of all Americans. This argument just doesn't.
Casimir, but that's not even what's happening. Trump has said the money, a lot of it's going to go to the Venezuelan people. Trump said that. This isn't a simple. This isn't. This isn't a. How come? Listen. Okay. All right. Okay.
Hold on, guys. Like Michael, respond, and then we got to go to closing statements. Okay?
All I'm going to say is this: much of this is highly irrelevant. This is not a simple case of where private property is being returned to the original private owners. That's not what's happening. Even if it was what's happening, that doesn't mean it trumps everything else that's going on. All the violations of rights that are taking place to pursue this. All the ramifications in terms of what Trump is emboldened to do. It doesn't mean it outweighs that. But the bottom line is that's not what's happening. It's not a matter of the people who homesteaded the land are getting their property back. That's not what's happening.
All right.
That's all. So Jacob, go ahead.
All right. Casimir, let's let you start. Let's do 5-minute closing statements work for you.
Flipped order. I started. I get to finish.
Sure.
Fine. Michael, 5-minute closing statement. Go ahead.
My closing statement is simple. This whole debate was about whether Trump's actions towards Venezuela are to the benefit of the American people. There are a lot of actions involved here. The seizure of Maduro, the bombing of Venezuela, the bombing of drug boats, the deportations, the lies, all of this is part of it. And also we have what's coming in the future as a result, where Trump is now contemplating going after other countries. None of this is in the benefit of the Americans. Yes, if private oil companies got a hold of the oil, it would tend to benefit everybody, not just Americans, but everybody. Everybody benefits when oil's in the hands of private companies, but that's not what's occurring here. You're going to have oil companies subsidized by the American taxpayer, protected by the American military, and then Trump and company are going to play a part in deciding who gets what. That's not simple private property being returned. Jacob, I appreciate you having me here. I got to admit, I was trying to have a little fun. I let my emotions out. I had a little fun with Casimir. I know he's an anger guy, but really, I'm fine. This was a fun time. Jacob, I apologize if I've disrespected you in any way, because I really do like you. That's all I have to say. And thanks, Casimir, for participating. It's been great. It's been fun.
I'm fine. I might not look fine, but
it's the beard. Yeah, once you shave the beard, you look much better.
I'll be honest. I'm hopefully getting better at moderating, but it's hard to moderate when you're sitting there and just towards both of you. There's just times where I just want to so I have to just sit there and just can't say anything, which can be frustrating. Casimir, go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
You got to unmute the guy.
You get all the time in the world for moderators' questions ahead of any super chats. That's the tradition, at least. I think that
you didn't ask any questions. Go ahead.
Most of what Michael said is absolutely irrelevant, like he says. It's absolutely irrelevant what Trump does domestically. The proposition is what Trump does in Venezuela towards Venezuelans. So specifically in Venezuela, he claimed that it was uninvited. I don't think so. I think the majority of Venezuelans did get the freedom to speak out about it without having their social media. By the way, this morning there were raids in Venezuela where people's phones got grabbed and their private thoughts on the internet could get them in prison or even killed in present-day Venezuela. So opinion polls don't really matter until the dictator falls. But the opinion polls of all of the Venezuelans that arrive in the U.S. are, yes, Trump, please liberate our country. We want to go back. So yes, we were invited there, in fact, by the victims, which you should respect. You said that it's all subsidized. No, it's not. The oil companies pay so much in taxes that if they requested a tax refund, do you know how many of these wars they could straight up just cover from the money that they have? A lot. Definitely this 4-hour strike they could cover. Specifically, not just cover it in general, the excess expenditure which was spent on this action, because otherwise the carrier would have been somewhere else at sea, bombing, fish, which is what they do in quote unquote peacetime, threatening some other country. That's what they would have done. So you don't get the choice of the carrier disappearing. And in fact, Michael Leibovitz is against the carrier disappearing. So tough luck. He's against a pirate McDonald's owned or Elon Musk owned carrier. That's illegal, by the way, in reality. I know, we all live in an ANCAP utopia where people like me are right when there's covenant communities and 10,000 Liechtensteins across the United States. We all live in that in our minds, in our hearts. But in reality, we don't have that yet. Therefore, we just get to say, good job, incompetent socialists. For once, you attacked a communist instead of one of ours. Thanks. Now, he says that the military shouldn't be doing that. Nobody should be forced to do that. Nobody is forced to do that, in fact. But the military is not a social club. What a person when your son and daughter go to a military unit, that's a combat unit, what they're saying is they want to die in Valhalla. What they're saying is they want to protect American liberty in action. They don't want to shoot, some targets out at sea that don't shoot back. They want to kill communists. That's their reason for existence. This is what a military is for. And whether it's funded by the government or by a private military corporation, which is outlawed in the United States, a truly private one that's not funded by the government, it's completely outlawed. But if it was legal, then those same people from the same families with the same mothers would go die as private military contractors, because that is their reason to live. They believe that their goal in life is to do the actual work of destroying communists, not just yap on the internet like us. And if you asked any of them what they would rather do, they would rather parade around Washington or go and kill communists worldwide, they would probably answer you, we want to go and kill communists. We don't want to nation build. We want to get in there, strike at all their military targets, destroy as much of their military bases as possible, and then get out and laugh at them on social media and laugh at all the socialists crying about it. By doing so, by the way, the US military becomes the guerrilla in this fight. The US military can show up anywhere, strike anywhere, then get out and laugh about it. This is the proper use of the US military, not putting boots on the ground, which I hope they don't do. But even if they do make a mistake later, it doesn't mean that their current actions up to the moment of this debate weren't true, which they were. I don't know what else to say. I think that half of the arguments that Michael Leibowitz expressed were just absolute misdirections. And every part of the argument that I constructed, he just conceded on. He ended up conceding on homesteading. He ended up conceding on the fact that it does benefit most of the world. And now he has a doubt. The first step towards a target, and he has doubts. With that strategy, you just don't do anything. Now, I would love for the government to really not do anything. But he's against that too. Thank you.
What was that?
That was his timer alarm.
Oh.
All righty. Lots of shots fired, but it was a lot of. I mean, I was laughing at some of.
I'm enjoying the chat. You've got a very eclectic audience.
Yes. Well, I have a very eclectic guests and panels. So yeah. We've gathered quite a crew here, including the two of you who I've. Listen. Hopefully, at the end of all of this, you guys can be. Are chill. Cass is very strong-willed. He's kind of like
well, I haven't blocked him yet.
He's like single barrel whiskey. It just comes on really strong, and you grow a tolerance to it.
I will never block you or Michael Leibowitz. I'll tell you the rules for me to get to block somebody, and I've expressed them. If somebody is spamming the same insult repeatedly. If you want to be in my comments and insult me every day, you have to be creative.
That's fair. That's fair.
Why do I got to tell you, can I just be honest about something real quick? I get the sense that having a beer with Casimir, and I don't drink anymore, but would be an absolute blast. I think that getting drunk at a bar with him and getting him all wound up would be the bee's knees.
Yes, I concur with that. All right, we'll start getting to all of your
drinks for that. We can get wound up without it.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Jacob, I want to just one real quick. I want to tell you about the audience, because I'm looking at the what they're saying. I saw a clip today of Tony Robbins interview. He was doing an experiment with Theo Von. So he tells Theo Von, he said, I want you to look around this room and find everything brown. Now close your eyes and tell me everything brown. He said, you're seeing everything's brown, right? Like everything. He said, now open your eyes and tell me what's red. He said, close your eyes and now tell me what's red. And everything was red. And so then he said, and I'm going to bet that when it was brown, everything was close. You counted as brown. And when it was red, burgundy was red. This was red. This was red. And the point was, what he was trying to tell him is, we find what we're looking for. And that's what I'm thinking as I read the chat, because the comments are so disparate. It's amazing to me.
Oh, well, yeah, that happens with anything.
Oh, I mean, it does. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, which, is fairly predictable. Like with the Dave Zulu debate, I was like, I predict that everyone who went in thinking Dave was going to win will conclude at the end that Dave won, and everyone who went in thinking Zulu was going to win will conclude that Zulu won. So, some of that's just human nature. Let's get through these super chats, and then I'll try to get through as many of the non-super chat questions as I can, but they're just harder to find. And we're going to go to pretty much the 2-hour mark, so we'll get through as much as we can. See, Huge Hat Herald for $20 or $19.99. Thank you. Cast reports coming out of Venezuela, yes, some from the government, say that civilians were killed in the operation to capture Maduro. If this is true, as an ANCAP and U.S. citizen, how would this aggression be in my interest?
So those are two separate questions. Let's say if it was an aggression as an ANCAP, I would say it's unjustified. But I don't believe it's aggression. I think that I could ask, like, legitimately, I could say the burden of proof is on you to demonstrate beyond reasonable doubt that a single innocent got killed. And if that is the case, that single innocent has a lot of claims of their family against all the military personnel that participated in this attack. However, it is a very high burden of proof to show on an individual level. What typically happens, and what many don't understand, is a point of disagreement among ANCAPs, I think objectivists as well, is the euphemism is collateral damage. But let's say unintentional killing in acts of war. The libertarian position, the ANCAP position that I support, is if the weapon was targeting an aggressor, say a missile site, and the weapon was chosen to inflict the least casualties possible while still destroying the thing, then it is legal in ANCAP to use it. International law is even more lax. ANCAP is much more restricted, which means that if they fired a missile with the intent of destroying the SAM site, and then there was a secondary detonation, and some of the missiles flew at a nearby house and killed quite a few civilians and maimed others, this is a tragic event, but the guilty party is the person that placed a military installation in the middle of a civilian area, and not the person that targeted it, because I'm not actually a consequentialist. I will evaluate this situation from like an objective perspective of law. So I think this is the case. Now, the other thing you should consider is in many of these conflicts, in the shadow of the information war, military personnel will work on a military base in civilian clothes. In Venezuela, there is a thing called colectivas, which are military personnel that drive around on motorcycles in civilian clothes and kill their own countrymen. And what they do then is, if they get killed or maimed or attacked, their weapon gets dropped, they show up in the hospital, injured or dead, and they're civilians, so they get counted as civilians. It's a very common occurrence in conflicts worldwide. And so it's very difficult to determine it, but I gave you like the rule that I would use.
Mike, do you want to comment anything on that?
The question wasn't for me, so I was reading the chats. But the interesting thing that I have with Casimir is I largely agree with some of his fundamental points about, for instance, culture. And I also agree that if I didn't hear you right, Cass, tell me, and I'll apologize, but I think I heard you. That if I go and I attack Jacob, and then I go and hide behind Cass, if Jacob tries to assault me and inadvertently hits Cass, it's on me. You haven't aggressed against Cass. I have, because I've put him in that position. And I think I'm going to probably cause a big argument, but this reminds me of a lot of the situation in Gaza, for instance, where if Gaza attacks Israel and then Israel goes after Hamas, the civilian casualties, I believe, not always, I'm not going to say in every case, but largely are on Hamas. So this is what I find most interesting about Cass when we're not arguing, is I agree with a lot of the sort of nitty gritty perspectives that he puts forward, that culture matters. I like the take that he gave to you. He took a shot at you the other day, Jacob, where he said, look, because you said, well, the American government has done all the same things as Venezuela's government. It really hasn't, right? I mean, you could say technically it has, like technically me flicking your face and shooting you are both acts of aggression, but they're clearly different. And Cass made that point to you the other day, and I thought that it was a good point. So I largely agree with him on this. That's that to sum up.
And before Jacob responds to this, I have to say, I understand Jacob's point. Like, I understand the feeling that America is an evil empire, because unfortunately it is. I just want people to be honest of when it started and the scale of it.
Sure.
I am an immigrant. I naturalized, and I lived most of my life in the US. So I'm a dash American now. Many people say I'm not. Doesn't matter. I do feel myself
You're American.
American than Russian, right? I don't like everything in Russian culture, just the best. And so for me, I am grateful for the United States being like the best out of everything that exists on this planet. Super grateful. And this is why, and I love it. Really, really love it. And this is why I'm both critical, but also I have to be fair. Like, the rest of the world is really much more shitty. The corruption in Russia is really much more shitty. Here, and I have a clear reason why. The reason why is because we're armed to the teeth. It's the only distinction I see. It's because we have more guns than people, and we'll print a lot more. Not me personally, I'm in New York, but let's just say there's a person printing for me in another state that I totally don't own, and once I reach there, thank you.
You know, when I was a reforming criminal, when I first started to learn to change, I read a book called Inside the Criminal Mind. And he said that you have to understand, he lays out all the characteristics of a criminal. And he says most people exhibit these characteristics at one point in their lives or another to a slight degree. The criminal exhibits them at the end of the spectrum all the time. And that's what this reminds me of. That yes, the United States government has done a lot of wrong. Yes, the United States government steals in terms of taxes, but it ain't what it is in Russia. And it sure as hell ain't what it is in Venezuela or North Korea.
See, and I guess to me, it's like, I feel like I'm not going to say it's the same, because I mean, like, the truth is, like, it would be unlikely for it to be exactly the same. I think
could we do this? Could we do this? What we've done tonight? You got two jabronis yelling at each other, arguing over what their government's doing. Another jabroni trying to gain some order. We're having fun. We're able to voice our opinions. You can't just do that everywhere, right? We have to own that that's a good thing that we can do that.
I think the only so Casimir said gun ownership is kind of the only reason that we have some modicum of freedom compared to the rest of the world, and the freedom we have that the rest of the world doesn't have to the same degree is freedom of speech. And so I 100% agree with that. But if we're just talking about the evils waged by the government, it's like, if we're talking about torture, if we're talking about killing political opponents, if we're talking about theft and economic devastation, I'm just like, we can, nitpick over degrees of scale, because then it's like, well, it's not exactly apples to apples, because it's like what Maduro did was like concentrated mostly to his people, whereas the American government is like, it's a lot because it's kind of spread out across, like, not just the domestic population, but all the different areas where our military and presence are felt. So I think the calculation is complicated, and it's not that I'm sitting here trying to say that I would rather live under it's actually like, I would rather be a citizen of the American government than have to live in a different country and be a victim of not only a different government, but also a victim of American foreign policy. So, but that's a discussion probably for another time, but those are just my thoughts since it came up a little bit. Also, the Israel stuff is like, I actually kind of agree in principle with what you guys are saying. I just think that when you actually look at the on the ground facts of like what's being done, it's way more than what people who are on the pro-Israel side like to admit. In the on the ledger of, this wasn't just like there was no other way except to use this exact lethal means in this, like for sure, some of those things happen, and there are instances where Hamas is hiding in civilian areas and using people as human shields, but it's just not to the degree where it's like the 10, all of the, whatever estimate you believe, 20,000, 40,000, 50,000 civilians that have died can be completely attributed just to that, and not also just the general like uh what states. And listen, Israel's not special. Every state military does this. They don't wage war well, and they this is why we're against socialized defense. At least Casimir and I as ANCAPs.
Yesterday I was trolled a good part of the day by Gene Epstein and Sheldon Richman harassing me about Israel. Epstein gave me this book to read by Benny Morris. I told them I'd read it. I haven't had a chance to even crack it, and they're sending me email after email, trolling me. It's like the highlight of my life after 25 years in prison, getting trolled by Sheldon Richman, whose columns I used to read when I was incarcerated. Great stuff.
Yeah, no, it's cool. All right, let's get through some more of these comments here. We have oh gosh, can I remember how to pronounce your name, brother? AT Alien 715 for $20. Thank you for that. If the U.S. normalizes seizing leaders abroad for security, how does that precedent affect Americans when other powers respond in kind through escalation, sanctions, or expanded state power at home? I think that's mostly meant for you, Casimir, but we can all chime in on it.
I have a very brief answer for you. The ship has sailed. I'm sorry. Last 100 years, the ship has sailed. It's already a precedent. It's been even probably before Panama. There are attacks that I forgot. Panama is a definite one with, I think it's Bush Sr. and then Obama. All the justifications are always flimsy. They're always lies. And so the only thing we get to choose is, do we applaud the one good one? Do we applaud the one that actually defends our interests? Or don't we? And this is the only choice we have. I don't believe that the slippery slope argument is real. I'll tell you why. Very, very simply. Americans are armed, and any attempts to repeat the debacle, I hope any attempts to repeat the debacle of Afghanistan is going to be stopped on the streets. There's going to be such a left-right unity if this actually happens, like you wouldn't believe. So I think that this fear is the only thing that actually protects us, not any precedent. Trust me, every single rule, law, constitution will be violated as soon as we're disarmed, as 2020 has demonstrated to everybody.
That's fair. Mike, anything you want to add to that, or?
I kind of agree with you. I mean, I do think that the slippery slope stuff is real. I also do think that precedent is already set for a lot of bad things. It seems to get worse and worse with each new person. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't argue against it, though. Like, one of my big bugaboos about this whole thing, honestly, when it comes to the Constitution, is originalism. My entire life, I've heard conservatives yapping about constitutional originalism and how important it is and how the Democrats and the left are destroying it. But now when their guy's in office, all of a sudden originalism doesn't matter anymore. And it's like, come on. What did you do, Jacob? You took off?
What? No, I that's part of my frustration too, is that like I kind of get Casimir's point that like that cat is out of the bag and it's hard to put back in, but it's also like I have friends, like one friend in particular I go to church with, who just tells me, because like I'm really big into foreign policy and paying attention to what's going on, and he's like, Jacob, I just don't care about foreign policy. I only care about like what is going on here domestically, what my government does to me. And I'm just like, yeah, but like it's connected. And I think there's truth to this sort of like even though I'm an ANCAP, it's not that I can't recognize that some states are worse than others. And I would rather live under a constitutional republic sort of designed by our founding fathers, even though I agree with, like, Casimir, that it was imposed by violence. So all this stuff is kind of like, compared to what, right? Like, so we should have stayed with the Articles of Confederation. The Constitution was
How was that
absolutely
imposed?
How was what imposed?
The article.
I
Constitution?
can answer you. We should have a stream about this, Michael. Maybe we'll bring a few more people. I'll give you the research, but let's just say that the Articles of Confederation were signed by every state voluntarily, and there was no controversy about whether to do it. There was initial controversy about attacking the British. Once they attacked the British, they understood they have to be united.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right about that.
Sorry, with the U.S. Constitution, the original sin you should look at is Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Americans, if they found out how Rhode Island was founded, it was founded by purchase, and how it became part of the U.S. Constitution, that was the first crime. And once you have the initial crime, the whole thing gets corrupted. I really look at it as the initial corruption.
No, I've made the argument a million. How old are you, Casimir, if you don't mind me asking?
Very.
You're my age. You're up around 50.
Let's say I was born in the USSR.
Oh, okay. But that could have been in the 80s. But I've been making the argument for a long time. Yeah, under the Articles of Confederation, amendment required all 13 states. The Constitution, when they went to the convention, only required 9. It wasn't to the states, it was to the people, so it was altered. I agree with that. But just the fact that 13 states signed on to it doesn't mean that the people within those states all agreed to it. The women weren't allowed to vote. There were slaves. I mean, so it was still imposed by force, even though the 13 states all agreed to it.
I mean, but it was a different type of, because, like, as we see the articles playing out, like, the government the articles created had no teeth to really do anything. So, like, they agreed to it, but it was like we're agreeing to this contract that basically doesn't, like, impose a monopoly of power over us. At the end of the day. Now, the state governments themselves
did,
like, anarcho-capitalist conceptions. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, and they also blocked free trade, and that was a problem. So the fact that there wasn't a universal, each state would put tariffs. So they didn't all do it, but a lot of them did. So you didn't have free trade among the states. So there were there's problems with whatever you do.
This is a great stream for another day to go down this road. But it gets just to my point is, like, even though I'm going to be pretty much in Casimir's camp on hating the Constitution in a objective sense, I could also say if we obeyed the Constitution by the originalist letter of the law, like, meaning of it, that'd be a better state to live under than what we have now. And there's just something contradictory in conservatives and liberals who want to be the global police force and global hegemon, but then also want to pretend that they're, like, originalist constitutionalists who want to have this small limited government. I'm just like, it doesn't really work both ways. So, but all right, we got another super chat here from Fabian Liberty. How you doing, man? Venezuela was the main importation of Chinese military tech to South America. Specifically, this was the first field test for the JY-27 Chinese stealth killer radar systems. China failed. Thoughts for the future, and is this a good thing? So I think that's more towards you, Michael.
Of Chinese mil tech to South America. What's the mil? I don't know the phrase mil tech. What does it mean?
Like military tech.
Oh, yeah. You got to understand, being in prison a lot of years, I don't get a lot of acronyms and I don't get abbreviations a lot of times. Somebody put today on a show I was on, IIRC, and I'm like, what the hell is he talking about?
If I recall correctly, correctly. Yeah.
So, but anyways, yeah, look, Venezuela's bad. There's no doubt about that. Maduro's bad. I don't care if somebody walked up to Maduro and put a bullet in his forehead. I'm perfectly fine with it. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. My concern is what's best for, first of all, me.
After a trial in Minecraft.
Me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For me, I'm never going to defend him. I'm never going to defend what he's doing. I'm never going to defend China. That's not going to happen. What I will defend, though, is a government tethered to a law, to the Constitution, which, imperfect though it is the oath that they take. And I would rather have a government tethered to something than tethered to nothing. Right. And we've become, in my view, way too comfortable with politicians lying to us. And it did not start with Trump, not by any stretch of the imagination. Right. But it's like,
he's just more transparent about it.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's a politician. They lie. Like, that's not okay with me. Yeah. That they're lying to us. They're lying to us and they're stealing from us. That's not okay. And so that is of far more importance to me than the fact that Venezuela is importing the military tech from China. And we also, the problem is, does this stop it? Like, somebody in the chat said, well, they're stopping the flow of drugs into the country. No, they're not. That's not going to happen. And are you going to stop the Chinese weaponry from coming over here? And if so, like, Trump just made a deal with them about, rare earth minerals, where he tariffed them and taxed them. And then once they made an agreement with him, he allows them to have it. So,
I think that what should happen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I want to just, Fabian Liberty said that the Chinese system failed. I only read the first part of the question. I'm sorry. He says China failed. Thoughts for the future. Is this a good thing? Anytime communists fail, it's a good thing.
Fair enough. Casimir, did you want to say something quick?
I don't know whether that's going to be good or bad. Maybe it will help them, improve it.
Well, that's a good
point. We don't know what actually happened, whether it was used or shut down. I think that there are two things I wanted to say earlier. I didn't get to say in the debate. I always like to find some point where I say, well, what's my proposal? What do I see as the way to do things? I think as long as we have a military, I want to see as many of these strikes as possible and as random as possible. Today, Venezuela, Maduro. Tomorrow, some guy in Cuba. And then next day, some guy in Mexico. We have this word called terrorism, which is when you use terror against civilians to affect political change. And that's evil. We agree that it's evil. However, we need a new word where you terrorize, quote unquote, or terrify, let's just say, agents of the state, specifically communists. And that's the exact opposite, because it's defensive. So defensively putting the fear of God into various communist leaders is good. And you don't have to be successful. In fact, being in a guerrilla mindset about these attacks is probably the best strategy. We are in the ocean, somewhere floating, and then bam, goes that country, bam, goes this world leader. And they all live in absolute fear. In fact, when the United States started doing that in the 90s, and there was some conservation, some conservative element about this where, we don't do nation building. I think for a brief moment it was effective because people like Libya's Gaddafi, lots of strong words, but in action, he became a lot more quote unquote peaceful. He started talking about restitution for some of his victims. He started trying to clean up his image. And internally, he started sharing a lot of resources with his people. So I understand why, the BRICS crowd was heavily amped up by him, like a model socialist, because he started becoming that. And I think the feud that he had with the French that resulted in his downfall was some kind of a tragic book that somebody will write, because these are two rival gangs, and one of them started making steps towards amends. And the reason why he did it was because he thought it would literally preserve his hide. Unfortunately, our leaders decided that chaos is better. And really, Leibovitz, Michael here has an argument. If he would have proven that this attack on Venezuela would cause chaos and an even more evil faction like Islamists to take power in Venezuela, I would probably not agree to this debate. I would probably say, well, shit, I'm lost. One of the reasons why I don't think it will happen is because there's no Islamism, there's no fanaticism in Venezuela. Even the socialists are like Christian types. by culture, and so I think they have a lot more hope.
Yeah.
I want to say something. Can I please, Jacob? It's
Sure.
just something that just really gripped me, and I'm feeling very powerful and very sad. I didn't know you were born in the USSR, Casimir. And I hate communists. I hate them because of what I know they can do. I can only imagine that you've had family that have actually suffered from these bastards. And I know that that must fuel you and fuel your hatred for them and to want to see them suffer. And I don't blame you at all. And I empathize with you. That's all. I just empathize with you.
I'll tell you, it doesn't really, only intellectually. I get infuriated by them intellectually because I know they're evil, not directly. My family was blessed. Most of my people survived World War II. On one side of my family, I do believe one of my ancestors died in Austria to the Nazis, most likely, like disappeared in the 30s. And so I have a bone to pick about that. I do hate communists, but not in. But when I was born in the USSR, communism was fake, and the other word that YouTube doesn't allow. And it was so fake that even the communists had trouble believing in it. It was basically a petro country, and as soon as the petro export declined, they had to surrender.
Yeah,
it was an empty shell.
I will say my grandparents, or my great grandparents, fled to America, and they lived in a town that was literally like Pole Russia, right? Like, it just depending on like what year you're talking about, it was either Russia or Poland. But they were Jews fleeing, like right around the time of like right before Hitler invaded Poland. So they got out in the nick of time. But if they had stayed, well, in whatever part of my grandparents' family stayed behind, I'll probably never know how they fared. But yeah, certainly Nazis and communists have not been good to a lot of people in the world, and not to my family, not to Casimir's family.
So can we all agree? Fuck Nazis and communists.
Yes.
Point of agreement.
Yes. 100%.
Socialist, in fact. But you know what? I think I flowed all over the place because it's not a well conceived thought, I guess. But I do. There are some people that are Trump's advisors that are advising him to re-enable privateering, and I think that would be the absolute most base thing. If you asked me, like an engineer,
what letters of mark?
Sorry. Yes.
Letters of mark.
Yes. If you asked me as an engineer, as like a problem solver, what to do with Venezuela, I would say fund in as peaceful a way as possible airdrops of weapons. We had Liberator guns in the World War II. Single shot pistols with the bullet ready, dropping from a parachute and just getting distributed over a city. This is really what's needed there. There are people with Kalashnikovs driving around on motorcycles, terrifying the population. And there are many people there who are sick and tired of that, but they got disarmed. They made the mistake in the early 2000s of getting disarmed, and these are the consequences. It's really shocking how fast communism won there. And I'm afraid that if nothing is done from the outside, they will become like Gaza and Judea. They will become like this enclave of endless suffering and vilification of outsiders, and it's not a good place to be for people. And unfortunately, I don't think anyone would volunteer to street fight for them, even though many people would volunteer as like SEAL team and Delta to go in and take out key targets. Nobody wants to be the police and like to fight a street war because it's absolutely brutal. But if we arm the population and just make weapons ubiquitous and widespread, that could actually function. I do believe that many people are hiding their power level, and a lot of the bravery of the thugs is because they don't get shot back at. what's happening right now in Iran is a good example. And I'm not optimistic about it at all. In Russia, there was a state in Russia on the Far East where people rioted for 6 months straight. And what the government did is just wait them out. Eventually, they have to go back to work, and that's it. That's it. And so I believe that there's a chance in Iran they will just wait them out. And when I see, like all of these motorcycle thugs in a video coming in a street in Iran, and somebody uses an improvised flamethrower against them, and it's ineffective, and he runs away, that's tragic. Because if I had all of my resources, some of my donations would go to that land, to those airdrops. I would really want to contribute to something like this, to say, yes, I try to help you guys, and I hope to do it voluntarily.
That's awesome, dude. Respect.
Quick question for you, Casimir. And we might not have time to tackle this with a lot of time, just with how much limited time we have left. But like, clarify for me: are you saying that essentially Trump did what he did, and it's going to result in some good, but you wouldn't necessarily advocate for him to do that? Or would you say that this is something that ANCAP should advocate for? Because that does matter to me. Like, if you're saying that like ANCAP should want America and want statesmen like Trump to decide to use the military in this way, are you saying that, well, we don't want them to do anything, but if they act, this is preferable to other actions they might take with the military?
Yeah, this is a common misconception. It's like, let's say there is, as an ANCAP, you look at the trolley problem. There's a lever. As an ANCAP, you are not allowed to pull the lever yourself, because you're not allowed to aggress against the one innocent to save the five. However, if there's someone else that stands there and he's not an ANCAP, and you yell at them, save the five, that's perfectly legal. Because it's the same argument as for voting. I'm voting between one evil and another evil. I'm voting for the lesser evil. As long as I don't promote, I don't conspire with, participate in the evil, I'm just like a hostage choosing the lesser one, I'm fine. Similar here, it's like, yes, it's a broken clock. Yes, it's an ineffective means of defense, and the private production of defense should be better. And how close to Michael's, minarchy should it be formulated? In fact, I think that if I spoke with Michael long enough to explain to him the format of like the Hopi and Covenant community, it could convert him potentially, because that's how it converted me. I was in his position like 10 years ago. I said, small government, but who's going to like destroy all the thugs worldwide? And now I think that private actors will be able to do so. They are basically regional monopolies, except the monopoly is by merit. You purchased the land. You invited all the tenants, and they voluntarily joined you. They voluntarily serve in your military, and get paid to participate. So I think we're actually very close in our ideals. He doesn't believe in it being possible to be like totally private. And we're actually close, because the end format is very much the same. A gigantic covenant.
I was getting
state.
I was getting tons of shit from the Zulu crowd for saying this the last couple of months, but I was like, true minarchists like Michael, I think, are fellow travelers of ANCAPs like you and me, even if there are some slight philosophical disagreements. But it's like the things we're advocating for in terms of how society would organize are pretty close cousins
we
in
disagree about what the most effective means are, not about what the end should be. I think all three of us want human beings to be free, to make their own decisions, to own their own property, to be able to do with their own bodies and their own lives whatever they want. I mean, I think we'd all want that. It's just a matter of what we think or how we think that best is implemented.
Yeah, I think that's good enough for the time we have here. Yeah, because like just to wrap a bow on what I was asking you, Casimir, because like I was thinking about this, and like there could be a slippery slope to someone saying, you arguing for this could also be an argument for, well, Trump should close the borders, because if you're going to have a border, then he should keep out the undesirables and the communists and the Islamists and anyone who is not conducive to a culture who values liberty. But I know you would say ANCAP should not, like, you would say we might not want those people here, but we should not advocate for government to control immigration, even if that comes at a cost of people coming here we don't want to come here.
Can we answer this question from Jim Valiant? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, that's not the format. If the format was that we ask a person, "Are you a communist?" and he signs on a document, "I'm not a communist." He enters the United States, and he said, and then he joins the Communist Party or the Democratic Socialists of America, and then we capture him and we boot him naked to the other side of the border. That would be legal because he's an aggressor, and he like lied about it, but more importantly, he aggressed. So the problem is the government doesn't do that. It also doesn't allow people to go to an empty home like place to homestead it. So there is a lot of arguments that are hidden because we disagree on fundamentals. But I can make Liquid Zulu and other open border enthusiasts concede on many points, which they don't even get to argue because the argument gets stuck in the originating principle. Once you accept the principle that open borders are better than closed borders, then you can say, well, private borders are much better than both. And what are private borders? They include calling the police to evict a communist.
Sorry, I was reading someone's comment, not you. I think I was reading the same comment Michael was reacting to. Yeah, I guess this would again be interesting to talk about more at some other point, because I think there's a similarity also in the like you were complaining to Michael, which I agreed with, that like the American government is forestalling private citizens from creating institutions to protect their rights and private property in other geographic regions. But that sounds like the same kind of argument that, like, say, Dave Smith might make for immigration, where he's like, hey, the government is forestalling our ability to freely associate. And so while they have this monopoly, if they're not going to allow us to sort of exercise our own right to, expel people from our communities and whatnot, and not live among them, then they should use that monopoly in a certain way which benefits the American people. So I'm not trying to make that. I think there's a way. I think there's a danger there.
You're saying Casimir is in line with Dave Smith. Basically, Casimir and Dave Smith are best friends.
You have to look at the analogy breaker, which is the targeting. So in Venezuela, if civilians were targeted, like deliberately, then we would say that's it. That's checkmate. That's awful. However, civilians are not targeted. There's no evidence of that. However, when the government implements closed borders, civilians are overwhelmingly targeted. It's Liquid Zulu gets stuck in Scotland instead of living in New Hampshire, right? It's him and everybody like him who's freedom loving that gets targeted.
Well, I've already said that I would crowd, I would create whatever it is, GoFundMe, crowdfund, whatever. We will get Liquid Zulu sponsored to come to the States in my Hoppian border system. Anyway, let's get through the last few of these chats here. Huge Harold for $5. Thank you very much. The debate aside, and despite Leibowitz's comments to the contrary, Casimir's fit is fire. Yeah,
what is fit? What is that? Outfit.
Yeah,
the Zoomer word for outfit.
Yes.
I'm role playing as the Amish, and they like it.
Yes. Yeah. All right. That was all the super chats. There was a couple comments I flagged. Just we'll read here quick at the end. This one, I never considered being hoppy until now. Casimir or Jacob, what's your recommendation to start? I don't know where you're starting from. So, I mean, there's a lot of great places to start to understand. Like, if you don't even understand, like if you're starting out and you're like, ooh, I want to be an ANCAP, and you haven't fully digested ANCAP literature, it's like, if you want something more meaty, there's The Ethics of Liberty by Rothbard. I will recommend, even though I have some qualms with little nitpicks, but Liquid Zulu's course is a great way to get introduced to sort of ANCAP theory. If you want more Hoppa's done a bunch of articles and stuff on specific things like the private production of defense and whatnot, in terms of like how how a free society could handle things. I don't know what your favorite Hoppa book is. I mean, I think Democracy of the God That Failed is always a great place to start, but you might have different recommendation.
It's a fun book. I think that if you're interested in like the law explained in a very good language, then you should watch a lecture by Stephen Kinsella and then check out his book, The Legal Foundations for a Free Society. I have some qualms with the book as well, but from what I did read, it was very, very sort of well written. He is a professional lawyer, and so he's good with words and good with explaining things in a simple way, but not shallow. Okay?
And don't call him Steven.
Stefan. Sorry,
Stefan Cattell. Yeah.
Sorry, and he has a brilliant lecture that I would start from on YouTube. It's called John Locke's biggest mistake.
Yeah.
Find the video that's posted on his channel. It has so many beautifully concise points that explain to you what is libertarianism specifically and what isn't. I don't know, you call it right libertarianism or true libertarianism. And I think Michael would benefit from watching that video as well, because it also handles the linguistics, like the error in the words that we use. There's a lot of statist mysticism in the language that we're employing.
Do you have any idea how much Kinsella I've read? I've debated him like 4 times. I don't just go into debates blind.
Kinsella's a great resource. He's done a good job. As also my co-patriot here at LCI, Kerry Baldwin, are the two I've read who have done a good job of making Lockean critiques of Locke in favor of arguing towards ANCAP ideas. I think a theory of socialism and capitalism is also a good one. It helps to explain the meme of why the bottom right quadrant of the political grid is ANCAP and everything else is communism. Like it's basically the meme is the book is the written form and the meme is the short condensed form.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear his take on why Mises was a communist.
Mises just didn't have Mises is like someone who just didn't have who was like a really brilliant scientist before like the best Newtonian physicist before Einstein came about, right? Like, just
you really think Mises didn't hear the arguments that were being put forth at that time for anarcho-capitalism? He taught both Reisman and Rothbard, who back then were both ANCAPs.
The problem with Rothbard and everybody else at the time, and it's a problem possibly, I don't know, with ANCAP in general, is that it's actually much younger than people understand. Many of the books that I would consider key were written towards the end of Rothbard's life, and he had to concede arguments. He was very open about it. He said, well, Hoppe fleshed it out, and I think the same thing is happening to Hoppe. He grows older. He gave an answer to Prax Ben, I believe, in one of his meetings, and said, oh no, the ethics is totally understood by everybody. All you should do is popularize now. Not true, unfortunately. There's a lot to develop. Many arguments are like 5 to 10 years old. So Mises was definitely not around. Rand was not around. A lot of the things that trouble people start getting answered. And that's what convinced me. Without those arguments, I started out mocking ANCAPs because I didn't understand. And I started reading, more recent stuff. And people convinced me by pushing me to be consistent and principled. And that's, a core disagreement here.
Well, we will do a separate stream in the future where we just we're the three of us talk about this stuff more. But we're short on time. I want to get you guys out of here. 2 more super chats that were added in real quick. $2 from Griffin Gaming 4474 said Hoppe is based. Enough said. I'm sure you like Hoppe too, even if you don't agree with everything he said, Michael.
I've only read Hoppe on argumentation, ethics, and epistemology. I haven't gotten into the law stuff or his economic stuff. We're limited in our time of what we can read. And hosting a podcast, I'm constantly barraged with stuff. Somebody will send me, you got to read this book. To interview me.
I know. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, no, but I have like five books on my to read list right now.
If you want to like a critique of our enemies, the best guy who unfortunately took a hiatus, a break from YouTube, is Tick History. Absolutely brilliant, with most of his takes on definitions, most of his takes on the nature of socialism and communism and National Socialism and fascism. His insights into this got so much enriched by interaction with Piekov and the objectivists that really towards the last 2 years of his work, he did brilliant stuff. And you just take his video and you get like an absolute destroying argument against, say, a Germany fan National Socialist. You take any position that they have, and he has a video demolishing it with references to every possible source, with analysis of those sources, and with the empirics of it, and with the philosophy of it. Just brilliant videos. I hope he comes back, and I hope objectivism makes him even stronger.
We'll leave the objectivism inside baseball for another show as well. I don't want to get. I'm not going to get in the middle of the objectivist infighting. The last super chat here from Griffin Gaming again said the private production of defense by Hoppe is a good place to start. Yes, 100% agree with that. I do think that is one of the more, I think we have good answers for it, but I do think one of the most legitimate criticisms or questions for ANCAPs is does it follow that a free society would be able to defend themselves against a foreign, like a nation state that tried to invade them? And while certainly it's like not impossible that a nation state could invade and conquer a free society. Nation states also conquer other nation states, but Hoppe does a good job, as does Bob Murphy and others, in sort of answering that question. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I'm usually here every Monday night, but we've been doing more extra content lately. So if you like these kinds of conversations, having a wide variety of guests and opinions shared, please make sure you subscribe. Again, like this video, share it. We appreciate it. I'm sure I'll be having these gentlemen back on at some point in the future. Make sure you check out Michael. Michael, where can people follow you on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it?
Well, it's on X. I am at Lebo is out. It's not out of the closet. It's just the handle I chose when I got out of prison. So it was Lebo is out. I didn't think it through before I made it to handle, and now I don't want to change it. So that's where you can find me on X, Facebook, Instagram. It's just Michael Leibowitz. I'm all over the joint.
Awesome. Kashmir, is there anything, I know you're not a podcaster per se, but is there anything you want to plug, or if you want to tell people where they can follow you on social media at least?
Yes, you should follow me on Free Casimir on X, X Twitter, and you should keep telling me to start my own YouTube channel. It really, boosts me up. And call me names if I don't do it within the next year. Definitely insult me as creatively as you can. Call me a weakling and all the other dirty stuff. Because I can feel your demand, and don't let me enjoy the laurels of it. Right? Make me work for it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thanks, Kashmir.
Yeah, and listen,
Michael.
you guys did a good job. It was a lot of there were fireworks. Everything ended on a good note. I'm happy. So
I hope I proved that I can be as big a dick as Kashmir. If I was able to prove that, then it's a victory for everybody.
It's better than the alternative. Trust me.
Gosh. All right. We're going to let everyone go. Everyone, we'll talk to you. I'll be back again here next Monday at 8 o'clock. We'll see you then.